Come on out.
Got it. Hello, I'm Darick Maasen. I'm helping a friend create or finish a graphic novel he wrote about the worst year of his life. And I apologize about the title, but not really, because this was a doozy of a year for him. I actually had to make a list of how terrible this year was for him. In this year of his 40th year of his life, he was laid off. He broke up with a girlfriend, had another failed little romance. He struggled to find work as a freelance artist. He was just kind of generally disappointed with his career and kind of where things had landed. He was, when you're turned 40, you kind of reflect and think about, the decisions you made and where you've been. So he had a lot of a disappointment there. He had a number of projects that he was really excited about sort of fall over and fall apart. And then to top it all off, at the end of that year, he ultimately was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. So this was a 256-page book that he wrote, front to end. He managed to get the cover done with a beautiful title. 20 of these, what they call thumbnail pages done, which are like rough sketches of like what a comic page will look like later, 20 out of 256. And he managed to completely finish and ink the first page you see here. It almost sets the tone of the book for him. It was a terrible year. The first time I met Ed was, in person at least, was at my 31st birthday party. He came dressed as me, and no one asked him to do that. In fact, he was the only person that did that, but that was just how Ed was. I knew him before that just through online because we were all part of the same kind of art groups. I run a figure drawing group. He was part of that. He was part of a comic creators group. He started his own karaoke group. He's a really great guy. He loves seeing people get together and be creative. There's me back there. There's Ed here at my figure drawing group. Ed loved drawing comics, and he was really good at them. These are a couple of pieces he did. He did a really great series called Chrome and Dust. He always was posting really great fan art online. Collaboratively having an artist friend like that was great. I love that. He always loved to make comics about things he was doing and parts of his life. So that's our figure drawing group up there. We appeared in his comics. He loved comics about cosplay. He loved showing that. His karaoke group, I love him in costume right here. He always made comics about it. There's a karaoke comic he made. Even after he was diagnosed with cancer, he took us along for that. He tried to make us understand what was going on with him by making these comics. And they were scary comics, but they were real, and it was about his life, and it helped us feel like we were along for the journey. Ed was really brave. He beat cancer once, and it was in remission for about a year and a half before it came back. He was always very strong, though. He always had such this brave face, and when we talked to him about what he was going through, he'd always change the subject to things that made him happy. The last thing he wanted to talk about was just the bad stuff. He always wanted to talk about the good stuff. He always had this brave face. So when he passed away, it was a shock to everybody that knew and loved him. It literally came out of nowhere. He lived right up until he died. The day after he died, there was a vigil in my backyard, actually. This was just a Facebook post that went out. This is how many people loved Ed. And this wasn't everyone. This was just who happened to see the message and show up at the address. But in this little corner right over here, with those two guys there, I found out about this book. I found out that it was just a Word document, pretty much, sitting on a hard drive, and a couple of the pages that he'd drawn. And that was it for right then. And those guys up there in the corner, as well as many of these other people in here, are artists who love and knew Ed. And many of them were really good comic book artists, professional industry people, like the guy who writes Green Lanterns in this crowd. So we're sitting there talking about this thing, and it was an idea that just had to be done. It wasn't like a decision. It was like, wow, this is a really long book. None of us can do this by ourselves, but we can do it together. So when I started my leap, I already knew what I was going to do. It wasn't a question of finding it out. But what was really interesting about the leap was I found out why I wanted to do it. On the surface, it was because it's a friend, and I'm going to finish a thing, and it's the right thing to do, but he has lots of friends. Why would I be an integral part of putting this thing together? He had lots of friends that were right for this. But I'm 35. I'm approaching 40, fucking 40. I think about things, decisions I've made in my life, the paths I've taken, and I relate to Ed. I see Ed in myself, and I learn things from Ed. And that's why it's important for me to do this, because I want to accomplish things. I want to make sure that my work counts later. I'm a good artist, but doing art isn't really what this is all about. I needed people to help me pull this together. I can't do it by myself. This is a really bad photo I took at one of our organizational meetings. But this is a table, a very small table of people that love Ed. This includes my wife. It includes his girlfriend who's here today. With all different sorts of skills. This is a writer here. And despite appearances, we're actually really serious about doing this. And we want to make it right. It started with a post, just needing artists. And we posted this to all the different groups I told you about earlier that knew and loved Ed. And it was very like, hey, if you want to be involved, be involved. If not, if there's 4 people that sign up for this, 4 people are going to do it. 150 artists signed up, raised their hand and said, I want to do this. I want to help make this for free. This is a lot of work. But 150 people raised their hand. And to date right now, out of the 150 that signed up, we actually have 128 that have gone through the process of signing release forms and things to really be involved, and more are trickling in. We have a lot to do to get there. I'm one of these leaps that's not done. I'm not going to be done for a long time. I think it'll be roughly a year before I physically hold this 256-page book about my friend's worst year in my hands. But we've divided up a really long script into digestible sections. We've identified 90 people that are really in the book. These are real people, and sent them likeness forms to release their likeness and name to be featured in this book. And they have to send us photos. We got to draw those people. Man, there's just so much stuff. It's all here. I'll tell you about it if you want to at some other time. But it's ultimately going to be a Kickstarter that funds the project and makes the first edition. So I'll be hitting all you guys up then. But the cool thing is at the end of this month, actually, assignments are going to go out to all the artists, assignments to actually start making the work. The real drawing is going to get started as early as the end of this month, which is really cool. I don't know if I have enough time, but I just want to share one little extra detail. This is how Ed drew himself. And like I said, there's 120, 130 artists making this book. And they all draw in different ways, and that's okay. That's actually what we want. We want the style to change as we go through this. But we made one really important decision at the beginning. We decided that stylistically, Ed will stay the same. Every artist, every page that Ed's on, he's going to be drawn like this, despite how the artist draws him. That way, Ed's always surrounded by his friends, but he's still just Ed.